I'm Bea.
And I'm Sam.
And we're two best friends who like to talk shit about smut, wingspan,
and sometimes books.
Join us every Wednesday for a new episode.
Hello.
Hi, this is episode 30.
Big milestone, just like us.
Yeah! This podcast has hit its 30th. We had, well, your 30th was last year, but like...
I was going to say nearly 40, I'm nearly 31.
Wow. So welcome to the 30th fucking episode of A Pod of Smut and Wingspan.
Yeah, so we've got another bookish collab.
Yes.
Today we sat down with... You might know him as Bookish Dad Reads on Instagram and TikTok. His name is Tyrone, and he very kindly came and talked to us today.
Yeah, and I think it was really important. So if you've listened to last week's episode, which in the world of podcasting isn't out right now, but it is in the world of podcasting, so it is out, so go listen. But last week's episode, we did a collab with the Bookish Babes After Dark podcast. That was really fun. But this week we wanted to talk to somebody specifically more of like a content creator on Bookstagram and BookTok. But also if anybody, hasn't seen Tyrone's social medias, somebody who's like a very open and honest and big advocate for mental health, talks very openly, honestly about their own like journey with mental health and kind of the reason why he started his Bookstagram and BookTok about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So although, a lot of this episode is like, lighthearted and fun and, we talk about like, Fourth Wing and ACOTAR, no spoilers, but we do.
This episode also talks about mental health, suicide, sexual abuse. So if you're not comfortable listening to those sorts of themes, then we would suggest maybe taking caution when listening to this episode.
Yeah, a bit more of a serious episode, I guess, this week on A Pod of Smut and Wingspan, but I think a very important episode and conversation to be had. Yeah, we just really hope you enjoy as much as we did.
Yeah.
For anyone that follows my page, they'll probably know me as Bookish Dad Reads, but it's Tyrone. I started this whole book stuff about 6 months ago, Feb this year. So what's that, 5 months ago? My math bad? Yeah, 5 months ago. Just because my mental health was shed. So I was suicidal. My wife found me in the shower crying, wanted to kill myself. Took me to doctors, started therapy. And therapists were like, look, you need to do something other than cycle, because I was just cycling loads at the time. I said, well, I read books. So they said, well, maybe do something with that. So I set up an Instagram page. And then about 2 months after, set up my TikTok page. And yeah, here we are.
Amazing. Yeah. I think when we mentioned it on, I think it was on a live a couple of weeks ago, we said about you coming on, and literally our comments were like, oh my God,
everyone was like, we love him. And we were like, oh, well, we picked somebody good then.
Yeah, we were like, we do, yeah.
It baffles me. Honestly, I don't understand why. Like, I don't get what people like, but yeah, I'm all for it. I love that they love it, but I don't get why.
Yeah, and I think, one of the reasons, because we've been big fans as well, as long as we've been doing this. I think we've literally followed you for like ages and ages, particularly on our personal account.
Yeah.
And I think like we resonate with you, I think, because we have that kind of laid back attitude towards like BookTok and Bookstagram, which is we kind of mentioned this in our questions, but like it's a very like aesthetically pleasing, I guess is the term, sort of world. Even just like book reviewing, talking about books, like people on the internet, not in a negative way, but like to get very passionate about it. And I think what we loved about what you do is, I say similar to us, but it is quite similar, that we talk about books that we love, but we always say like, we are not professionals. Like our opinion means nothing. And we, I mean, literally by the name of the bloody podcast, like the least serious people ever. And I think that's what we love about the content that you create, is that you are one of those people who, are really up there in terms of like looked up to people on particularly Bookstagram, BookTok, but you take yourself so unseriously.
Yeah, it's because I ain't got a clue what I'm doing. It's the honest answer. Honestly, I don't know. So like I couldn't tell you now what I'm posting next. Like, I don't plan content. I've just got my phone with me, so my plan behind content is my phone's here. If I've got something to say, I'll just record myself and say it. I don't know what I'm reading from one day to another. At the minute, I'm reading Harry Potter. Yeah, I mean, there is no method behind the madness at all. I just blag it, really. I'm a big believer in just fake it till you make it.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, well, it's working for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, something's working, isn't it?
But I think that's probably one of the reasons why I think what you do is so refreshing, because it's like taking that unserious approach to the community, but also being like so genuinely yourself, you know, and people obviously love it. You know, we're a part of your like Fable book club, and we saw recently that you were like out and about. I think locally you went out with some of your followers and went book shopping. And like there's obviously this huge community behind you, which is just wonderful. And it's so nice, I think, to see somebody who is a bit more real life, if that makes sense. Like, you know, succeed in this weird world that is Bookstagram and BookTok, I guess.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I've got no friends outside of Bookstagram or BookTok, so I couldn't message someone now and be like, "Oh, do you want to go for a coffee?" So I genuinely see like every person that I message on my page is like, if not a friend, then it's someone that I'm socializing with. And I'm not going to say, you know, every single one of them are my friends, because some of them might just comment maybe once a week, and it's a way for me to communicate with other people that have similar interests. They're going out and meeting people. Like, I'm massive, and especially since I went through all my mental health stuff, I'm a big believer that staying in the house and hiding away from your problems is the worst thing that you can do. So a lot of the people I meet up with and speak to, I do it, one, for me, but also just to get them out of the house, because I think it's the worst thing you can do, just sit in a house. Although it's comfortable, for about 3 or 4 months, I just sat in a house and did nothing. And yeah, I felt comfortable, but I didn't make any progress at all. So just try and get people out of the house, talking to people. I've started doing lives recently. And the first thing I say to everyone on my lives is, look, this isn't a live for you to come in here and chat to me. It's a live for us all to chat in comments and get to know each other, add each other. I get indie authors coming in and I say to them, look, sell your book. Get in my comments and tell people about your book. I don't see it as my platform. Yeah, it's me that puts the content out, but I just see it as like a community, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. I joined one of your lives the other day and you were brushing your teeth and somebody had commented like, you've just reminded me that I haven't brushed my teeth. And I was just laughing at like how real life it was.
Yeah. I'll never try and be someone I'm not. You know, end of the day, I live in a 2-bed council house. This is not an aesthetic. Like, I'm not gonna try and pretend to be what I'm not. And I get a lot of messages from people who say like, I really want to start, what do I do? And I'm like, look, there's 7 billion people on earth, but there's only one you. So, you know, there's no point trying to just copy what everyone else does, because then you just get lost. Whereas if you just come online and just be authentic to you, whether it's 500 people or 5,000 people, like, that's massive. You know, when I remember the feeling when I hit my first 100 followers, and I was like, wow, like 100 people, not only 100 people, but 100 strangers give a shit about what I've got to say. And that were incredible. I don't feel any different now. If anything, my first 100, like, I was buzzing. My wife got home from work and I was like, babe, I've got my first 100 followers. It was just incredible. I loved it.
I think that's what, you know, is so, I wouldn't say surprising, but one of the really positive sides about this community is that people just want to talk about books to other people that they sort of enjoy, I guess. And we felt like when we started this, we're still relatively, you know, we started in March. And we were literally just 2 friends who would spend a load of time talking about books. And I just convinced Sam enough, like, let's just do a podcast. And it took a lot of convincing. And when we actually had like the first person messages, because I guess what's a bit different about podcasting is it isn't as like interactive. Like, we have social media, but it's a bit more like just us recording and we put it out and it is what it is. But when we first had our first message that said like, oh my gosh, I love listening to you guys, and we were just like, we just literally dickheads literally sat on their sofas in their house, like probably giving the most inaccurate review of a book you possibly could give. When we review books, we forget things all the time. But like you said, it's just about being yourself, and if people are going to follow, then that's amazing, you know.
Yeah, there is some incredible people. There's also some arseholes. Like, I've met. You tend to find that the bigger people get, the more arseholey they get. I think it's easy for people to be really nice and genuine when they're smaller, because they feel like they have to be nice to build the relationships and grow. But I remember, like, when I was at like 1,000, 2,000, I approached a lot of content creators who are now probably smaller, if we're talking numbers, than me. They didn't want to know, like, and I think that's why I'm so big now on trying to help smaller accounts. And when I do my live, saying to people, look, jump in my comments and tell people what you do, because nobody, for some reason, wants to help an account that's smaller than them. I don't know if you saw today, I did a collab with Stephen Walker. Do you know what? He's the first person that actually spoke with me and were like, we'll do this. Because I've spoken to a few people, I'll never name drop, but I spoke to a few people before and said, look, I think this would be a good idea for us to collab. But you can see straight away, they're like, well, no, it don't benefit me as much as it does you, because I've got maybe 10,000, 20,000 more followers than you. And I just think, for me, it's not that. I don't care about the number, it's Instagram, for people that don't know, or if you didn't know, you can't monetize from Instagram. You don't get paid a penny. Mm-hmm. So I don't get why they're so touchy about grabbing onto the followers and not just sharing. So yeah, there are some fantastic people, but there are some very, very selfish cretins as well.
Yeah.
But I'll never name drop.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, B here. We're just going to take a short break from this week's episode to talk to you about the first ever sponsor we've had here at a pod of Smut and Wingspan. We've been very, very fortunate that one of our favourite special edition book companies, The Ink Pages, reached out and wanted to sponsor an episode. So we're here to talk all about their special edition books. The most recent book they have up for pre-order is A Trial of Fate by J.E. Larson. This book sale ends September 29th at 6 a.m. EST. It's an epic fantasy and it's the perfect cure for those of you who are suffering from a really bad ACOTAR hangover. We have shifters, fae, humans. A Trial of Fate is all about dark magic of the wilt that's steadily growing, devouring the world piece by piece with each passing day. The fate of all fae, shifters and humans is at stake. Every century the high fae venture past the magical veil in search of a shifter to compete as their champion in trials of their inner kingdom. Only a shifter who completes the trials can unlock the healing powers of the Heart of Valdor, a magical stone that has power to save our world. For 500 years, no shifter has been victorious or returned alive, and this task has fallen on the FMC. Skylar is a 21-year-old shifter, though her animal form hasn't yet appeared. She's a real badass, but will have to overcome many challenges and darkness. The tropes you can find in this book are strong FMC, slow burn, trauma rep, found family. The special edition books from The Ink Pages will have foiling on the cover, full colour inner pictures, and bound vellum overlay. You can read a full excerpt about this book on the Ink Pages website, which is www.theinkpages.com. This is also where you can place your pre-orders for the book. The pre-orders, like I said, will be closing on the 29th of September, 6 a.m. EST, and the books will be shipping in November. We're so excited to get our hands on a copy of this. It's literally stunning. And please go ahead and follow the wonderful The Ink Pages on Instagram. The Instagram handle is the.ink.pages.
We have been, I say, quite lucky that we've always had really positive experiences, regardless whether we had 50 followers, 500. Like, we have just been very lucky. But I completely agree with you that I think sometimes, particularly this is getting a bit thin when people, start making like a business of the account. But there's nothing wrong with that at the end of the day. Like, if you're going to monetize, you're going to monetize. Like, nobody's a better or worse person for doing it or not doing it. But yeah, 100% when all of a sudden, it's like, oh no, because of X, Y, and Z reason. And it's a bit like,
Yeah, it's just, I do this full time now. This is like, I've managed to, between my Instagram and my TikTok, I've managed to monetize it now.
Mm-hmm.
But I've said from day one, I just won't monetize from my followers. Like, I get a lot of messages and comments, people saying, look, you can do content. At some point, I've got an Etsy shop ready. I've got all the designs and everything ready. But it's like, so I made it, and basically I just get samples sent to me so I can wear them. Like, my Tamley makes me gifts up that I wear.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one that I put in my Etsy shop so I can buy myself.
Yeah.
So I get that people want to make a business, and I love that. But I don't know, I'm funny when people want to make a business off the back of the followers.
Yeah.
I struggle with that personally, because if all my followers unfollowed me tomorrow, I'm back at work. I'm working, I'm selling cars again.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, we've always said this. Like, I think a lot of people always ask us, like, oh, is it ever going to become?
Yeah, is it a lucrative business? No, we're in the negative.
We never. That was never the reason for doing this, so we don't care. Like, we don't care. And our friends say that, like, oh, you lose money every month, and we're like, it was never about making. We never did it to make money. Like, that's not what we're here for. At the end of the day, we all have a hobby that we're really passionate about, and that's ultimately what's like brought everyone together, I guess. I think as well, maybe when you start taking that attitude towards it, it starts to lose like its sincerity as well, doesn't it? Like that authentic kind of touch that I'd like to think a lot of us try and put on it. And not that we do that forcefully, it's just because it's natural. But I think as soon as you start making videos to make them successful as opposed to just being yourself, like that's the reason why so many people follow you, right? Because you've just been yourself for 6 months. It's like treading that fine line, isn't it, between business and hobby, I guess.
I mean, if you look at my page, there's you can normally tell if someone's trying to make a business from the page, because it'll normally be the same kind of content continued, just rinse repeat, whereas mine, there's just no. Sometimes I look at my page and I just think, what am I doing? Like, what on earth am I doing? But there's just no method behind it at all.
There is. I just feel like there's no rhyme or reason, is there? Some of our videos that have done really well are so stupid, and then content that we've actually like planned out and thought, right, we're going to do this, it'll get like 200 views, and we're like, how how is something so stupid done well?
It's because are you on TikTok as well, or just Insta?
Yeah, we're on TikTok. Both. Yeah.
So TikTok and Insta. So TikTok's not actually classed as a social media platform. So when you post on TikTok, it never goes to your followers. It only goes to the For You page. And then depending on how it does on the For You page, depends on if it gets pushed to a wider audience. But as you'll know, on TikTok, all people do is scroll. So if your video is interested in like the first 3 seconds, typically it'll do well. Whereas on Instagram, it's the other way around. If your followers engage well with your post initially, it then goes to the Explore page. So if you've got a good relationship with your followers, your views tend to just kind of slowly snowball. But planning content, I can't really comment on planning content, because other than my Akatar skits, like I don't plan anything. And even my Akatar skits, like although I know in my head like which scene I want to do, I don't really know what I'm going to say, so I don't write it down or anything. I just get my camera. A lot of my videos are like one take. There'll be somewhere I'll maybe just delete it because I'm like, oh, that was crap, and I'll delete it and do it again. But I'd say on a daily basis, I probably spend about 10 minutes planning and recording content. Like, it takes no time at all.
Yeah, and when we say we plan, it's just podcast clips. That's the only thing like we. Like we say plan, but it's just our like bread and butter, and then anything outside of that is just like what we feel like doing on the day. But like you said, sometimes you're recording stuff and you're just like, what's happening? Like, what's going on here? I am going to move on just to some of our like more formal questions, just because some of
I didn't read them, so this is actually quite good. No, this is good though, because like, I think if I'd read them, I'd probably just have rehearsed what to say. This is good.
So we wanted to discuss with you, first of all, what it's like being a male in a predominantly female-dominated industry and genre that is romantasy. Like, we know you read probably a much more broader genres than we do. We are pretty much fantasy and romantasy. But, a lot of the videos that you feature that, your bigger ones are like the Akatars, the Fourth Wings. What is it like being, a male reader in such a female-dominated, genre, I guess?
It's just serious. I thought we was going to come and have a chat. Do you know what? I've never thought about it in that way, because so my page, I genuinely see it as just a way to communicate with people. So the only difference that I notice being a bloke in a predominantly like female environment is that I struggle to find male friends. Like, I respect my wife. I don't want to meet up with a woman local and sit and talk books. But regards being a man that talks about fantasy books and romantic books, I suppose it only helps me for positive, really, because I've not got much competition ever. So there's I suppose women I think women find it interesting hearing a man's perspective on some of these books. But for me, I've always been quite feminine in my taste of everything. Like growing up, I loved Disney films. I loved sad films like P.S. I Love You, Notebook, anything typically that you'd think I wouldn't read or watch. I did read and watch.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I just it's just stuff that I've always read, always liked. Never even thought about it.
No, I think because we said this, because when we found this genre, I think, but we're the what's the word, we're the demographic that
where who Sarah J. Maas was aiming for.
We're middle-aged women, and they're you're the suckers we're gonna rope into this. And we actually noticed that of all the books we've read in the last sort of 2 years of reading again, every single one has been written by a woman, and that isn't intentional. It's just the genre. So when we started to come across your page, that's what we just found so interesting, and I think so refreshing, is you just enjoy what you enjoy, and sometimes that's romantasy, sometimes that's crime, sometimes it's thriller, but seeing you literally a dad talk about Fourth Wing is just fantastic. It's just great.
And I don't get it. I suppose I understand. I went to a Rebecca Yarros event last month, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, recently, and when I went there, I'd messaged maybe 15 or so people on my stories, and I just said, look, I'm going here. If anyone wants to meet me, we'll meet up before and we'll go together. So I met up with 15 followers on page, and we went to a bookshop. We went round together, and I thought, oh, this is wicked. I've met these all now. That'll be it. And then when I got there, we got in queue, and there were loads of people tapping each other and looking at me, and I was like, oh, I don't think I realise how big the page is or how big my presence is in the community. Because I just don't see a 34-year-old bloke reading books about dragons as a big thing. I think because it's always stuff that I've done, I think, well, that's got to be normal. But apparently not.
Yeah, I think it's amazing as well, because we see it a lot with our male friends, smut shaming. They're you're reading porn, women reading porn all the time. And we're just we're oh, whatever. So I think it's amazing to see a man reading romantasy, because we're see, it's not just for us, it's for everyone to enjoy.
I think the reason men don't like that women read it is because the men in the books do what women really want men to do. I think men just feel genuinely intimidated by it, because typically men would rather just hock to and skip the foreplay. And I think when you're reading their books and they know what you're reading, they think, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got to put some effort in. I can't just.
It's a lot. It's a really high standard to live up to, isn't it? All of a sudden, when you've got a tattooed Illyrian man with wings that is getting on his knees for you, how do you live up to that? Yeah, no.
I'm so laid back though. For me, I'll chuck my missus the book, and if she wants to get turned on by a 6'4" man with wings, he's done work for me. I'm yeah, cool, whatever.
No.
I think a lot of men out there I call them alpha bros, where they try and act really manly, and I think by saying oh, I'd be interested in reading that, it's almost not manly. So I think a lot of it is just a facade, and they feel like they have to tell you that it's sad to read it or whatever. I think if you put a smut book in front of most men, especially I read one recently by Leah Rivers, which was Insatiable, and the actual plot behind that was not serial killer, but there was murder in it, fighting, guns, plus the smut as well. I think if you put a book like that in front of most men, they'd be lying if they said they didn't enjoy it, if they like reading.
Yeah.
But they're just too manly.
Yeah. No, 100%. So the next question we had were what are some book icks or least favourite tropes that you have in the reading world?
It all depends on my mental health. I'll read anything at all, but recently I DNF'd Zodiac Academy, which the actual plot behind it and the school setting and everything screamed everything that I'd want to read, but there was a bit of bullying in the first book. My mental health were in a bad place at the time, and I just couldn't read it. So I don't think I necessarily have any things. I think what does frustrate me is, with romantasy at least, all the male characters just seem to be morally grey men, and I'm just give me something different. So
Yeah.
I suppose that's probably my only ick, is that all the male characters are just very samey.
Yeah.
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 Give me a
Definitely.
good guy. Give me Jacob from Twilight.
Yeah.
Like, I just want something different.
Yeah, I don't know if you've read Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, but the main male character in that Hunt, like, gets a lot of shit in the Sarah J. Maas fandom about being too, like, boring and we always say it's just because he's the least problematic of, like, all the leading men in like this, genre, and actually he's still probably a bit morally grey, but actually compared to most, he's just a really nice guy, but he gets the most crap for it because people think that he's just really, like, vanilla. I know. I totally get.
I like Kale from Throne of Glass.
We love Kale.
Love him.
Yeah.
And
I'm definitely a
everyone
Kale
always
fanboy.
tells us, so they're like, oh, skip Tower of Dawn, like, don't want to read about Kale, and we're like, no.
He's one of our favourites.
Tower of Dawn was my second favourite book.
We love Tower
I
of Dawn.
love Tower of Dawn.
Yeah, I
Love
loved it. I didn't do the tandem read because I wanted to read that on its own.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same.
But yeah, Queen of Shadows was my favourite, and then Tower of Dawn was my second favourite. And whenever people say to me, like, oh, it's Kale, though, it's so boring, I'm like, dudes and dudettes, like, that man you're forgetting that he's a human being surrounded by immortal people who've got powers. Like, he's going to make silly decisions. He's going to be scared when they're not. And I think most people read Tower of Dawn and just forget that he's not like any of them. But yeah, I love him, definitely.
Yeah, agreed.
We are big Kale fans.
We fight that corner all the
all the time, especially when we're on a live. Like, we'll start talking about him and people will just give him so much shit, and we're like, no, leave if you're going to talk bad. Okay, so back to BookTok and Bookstagram and the whole community. Yeah. How do you feel about the growth of the community and the effect on, like, the reading fan base now, and like, how it's become a tool for authors?
I don't know, because you know what, I'm guilty of not watching enough content, because I spend pretty much all my time, like, day and night, replying to comments, replying to messages, that I don't get enough time to actually watch the content that I want to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I see if a video goes viral or something. I saw this silly idiot recently who put a video on about basically people like me are making the internet stupid. I'm a massive believer in, like, one day we'll all be dead. I don't get involved in all that stuff. Like, I post content online about my love of books. I want people to comment on my stuff about their love of books, and I don't think about it any further than that. Like, yeah, I love supporting indie authors. I know there are people out there. There's a girl at the minute going viral on TikTok because she was charging indie authors loads of money for reviews that she never did.
Yeah.
But again, I just try not to get involved in that stuff. I just think if you want to succeed in anything on social media, you need to keep your nose out of people's business and just do your thing. So yeah, I try not to get involved in the politics, shall we say, of BookTok and Bookstagram.
Yeah, I think I just love it because it's not only, like, book accounts that message us. We'll just have, like, a random woman be like, oh my god, you recommended this book and now I'm really into reading again. And I'm like, if we've made one person start reading again, like, that's amazing.
I love it. Yeah, I always say to people in my comments, like, the only three things that I want to do on every video is either make someone laugh, raise awareness for mental health, or just recommend a good book. And if I've done one of them three things, I'm buzzing. And I think one of the reasons that my account probably took off as quick as it did is because I wasn't, like, a lot of people that do BookTok and Bookstagram almost try and attract other BookTokers and Bookstagrammers to their page and communicate with them. Whereas, like, I don't really care about other BookTokers and Bookstagrammers. I just want to talk to the average reader, because that's what I see myself as. I don't see myself as a BookToker and a Bookstagrammer, because I don't know enough about reading prose and what's a good book and what's a bad book and what's good writing and bad writing. Like, if a BookToker was to message me and be like, oh, what did you think of that book? It was poorly written. I'd be like, I don't know. I couldn't
enjoyed
even
the
spot
story.
Yeah.
Well, I still don't even know how to spell believe. Like, I before E except after C, but I'm sure it's not. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just not that guy.
Yeah, no, I think that we always say this, that, like, I think what the positive thing in this whole anti-intellectualism thing is, I think what's great about BookTok and Bookstagram is it's putting the, like, almost ownership back in the power in the reader's caught, right? Like
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
got series like, I always reference this all the time, but like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Ruby Dixon's Ice Planet Barbarian series.
Yeah, yeah. It was actually in a Waterstones I went to recently. Someone was like, why is that in Waterstones?
Yeah, but it's the type of book like 10-15 years ago, if you'd have gone in with that pitch to like Penguin Publishing House, right, in London, and gone, I want to write a book series about aliens with massive blue dicks, they would have been like, get out, like leave, we're not publishing that, like no way. But because it's giving the reader the sort of power to decide what they want through like social media accounts like yourself and us, that all of a sudden she's literally sold like millions and millions of copies of books. She's in Waterstones, she's been taken seriously as an author, which previously, you know, traditional published houses wouldn't have even looked at them. And like you said, you know, we're the same. When we really like, we tend to not talk about a book if we didn't like it, and that isn't in a not genuine way. It's just that we don't find it beneficial,
and we don't enjoy it.
No,
we don't want to sit there and slate a book.
It's just just because we didn't like it doesn't mean that, you know, we'll be honest and say, oh, we DNF'd that, or we gave it these many stars, but like, we're not going to sit and do an hour-long episode talking about a book that we just didn't love. The only exception to that was a series we did recently, but we always said in the comments of all those posts, like, just because we didn't like it doesn't mean it's a bad book. Like, this author is making like millions, like, and congratulations, and we support that. And that's what's so subjective about this. When people comment on our videos of books that we rate 5 stars and they say, I actually DNF'd it, we're like, that's what we love about this community, because everyone's perception of it is so subjective.
Yeah, and I did a video probably a couple of months ago where I said, like, I think it was something like, this is 5 books that I've DNF'd, but I think you'd love. So books like The Night Circus, Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, like, I really struggle with books that have got like really nice writing and they're quite wordy and beautiful, and they're them books. But I know that probably another 50% of people would absolutely adore them books. So I don't really do star ratings. On my Fable, I have to. So at the end, obviously, when you finish your book, it says rate it. So I rate it. But I'm a massive DNF advocate. So if I don't enjoy a book, I DNF it. And I refuse to rate a book that I've not finished because it could have got good. So a lot of people say to me, like, oh, why don't you do Goodreads? And I'm like, yeah, I probably DNF more books than I finish. So I don't want to constantly keep putting like 2-star, 3-star, 2-star when the books could have been insane. I've got such a short attention span that it's like, I don't think I'm the guy to be doing like proper book reviews.
Yeah, no, 100%. We kind of like, I guess, kind of took that path, didn't we, when we said like, it's just not like beneficial for us to keep talking about books that we're not like, oh my gosh, because that's why we did this, like, you know, why we all love this like community is because we just love books and we just want to talk about books that we love, like that feeling of like, oh my gosh, that was such a good book, I need to like talk to somebody about it, you know. I
find it's quite good to do like my reviews typically. If I do a review for a book, I'll say like, this book is about this, this, and this, as opposed to saying the book made me feel this, this, and this, because I think that way you're taking your personal opinion out of the equation. And in that way, you can literally review any book. Doesn't matter whether you enjoyed it or not. Like, I've got books upstairs that I've gone onto my page and I've recommended to people and said it's about this, this, and this. House of the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I've not finished that book yet. I started it, but I could see straight away that it was very similar to In the Lives of Puppets. And I still recommended that because I know what I'm getting. I know what kind of author he is. So I think if you just stay away from personal opinion, it's a lot easier to actually recommend books.
Yeah, and I think we did it, we did it recently with like, so the one series that we just, again, we're not saying we didn't dislike it, we didn't DNF it, we just weren't keen on, was the Powerless series, the Powerful series. But then at the end of it, we always ask each other, would you recommend this? And we both said yes, because we think it's the right fit for someone, if that makes sense. Like, we think it's one of the best, if you're looking to branch into fantasy, romance, and sometimes fantasy can be really daunting when you see books like, you know, Crescent City, Priory of the Orange Tree, like these gigantic fantasy books. Like, Powerless is actually the perfect book to pick up and start easy. And I think sometimes people find that a bit odd because
we're like, oh, I didn't love it, and then we're like, would you recommend it? Yes, I would.
I'm the same with, what was it? I've just finished Housemaid, I think, by Frida McFadden. I really didn't enjoy that book, but I also couldn't put the book down. Like, I finished it, and it was just a weird book. Like, I guess the plot that was coming, There were so many like plot holes, which I don't look for plot holes, but I was just like, they were that obvious. I was like, how stupid's that?
Mhm.
But then someone messaged me, I'm like, would you recommend it? I'm like, yeah, I think you'd love it. Like, but it just weren't for me.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of on the same sort of topic, what are 3 books you'll always recommend to other people?
Harry Potter 3, 4, and 5. so Harry Potter definitely, like Harry Potter. Yeah, I think it's more the nostalgia for me of Harry Potter. It's what I'm not gonna say it's what got me into reading, because Goosebumps and Shivers probably got me into reading young, but it's just a book I remember like staying up late at night for. So I'll always recommend Harry Potter. Probably Fourth Wing over ACOTAR for someone getting into fantasy. Love ACOTAR, but I just prefer Fourth Wing because dragons. So, and probably Chris Carter, because I love crime books, and Chris Carter's books have just got cracking them or something.
Yeah, I think we actually just had a friend who is starting to get into romantasy, and we said do Fourth Wing before ACOTAR. It's like I think it's a bit more kind of like, I guess, like relatable topics with it, because we always sort of joke that it's like it's the grown-up Harry Potter read, isn't it? Like that's basically what it is.
I think as well, Fourth Wing's probably just got less. Not that there's less plot to it, but there's a lot going on in ACOTAR. When you dig deeper into ACOTAR, I think there's just a lot more going on than there is in Fourth Wing. So I think Fourth Wing's just anyone could read that, whereas I think ACOTAR might confuse them.
Yeah,
100%.
Totally. Yeah.
This was
my question.
This is just our favourite question. Where did the idea of using coat hangers as bat wings come from?
I've not bought a prop. So for all my ACOTAR skits and stuff like that, I've never bought a prop. And I just sat down and I thought, right, what could I use as wings? And coat hangers just seemed like the obvious thing. I just thought, well, I need something that I can get on my shoulders. And I was just like, well, I'll try coat hangers. So there weren't much thought behind it. It was just like, what can I put on my shoulders?
Yeah.
And the first time I did it, it was a bit of a squeeze. So then I got some bigger coat hangers, and I was like, boom, perfect, and it just stuck.
Yeah,
it's fucking hilarious.
Whenever it comes up on my reels, and that's the first thing I see, I'm literally just in tears. It's just the funniest thing ever.
Funny.
So funny.
Again, it's like all the things that I do. I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive, but when I did it, I didn't think I'd get the reaction that I did from the coat hangers, because everyone is like, oh my god, the coat hangers killed me. I didn't see that as the funny thing. Like when I was doing the video, I was like, oh, the content's quite good actually. Like, I was happy with the content, and I was just like, well, I'll just stick these on so people know which character I am. Everyone went mad now. I was like, oh, cool. You like the coat hangers?
It's so funny.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's hilarious. We just love it. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it just makes me laugh so much.
I mean, we've sort of covered it, but it's one of the quotes from one of your videos, where you said, I don't know anything about reading, I just know that I love reading. And we just I just think that resonated with us, because like we said, the community sometimes can be so serious and be like, oh, well, that's not technically well written, and we're like, well, we just enjoyed a story. Like, I
just don't give a shit. Like, do you know what? There's a place for it. I'm not going to say there's not a place for it. Like, I honestly wish that I could appreciate the good writing. Like, sometimes I read books. Like, I've tried reading Christine Hanna. She writes The Nightingale and the Women, which is books about like World War II and Vietnam and stuff. And some of her books are like beautiful, and I read some of her books and I'm just like, I wish I could understand like the different things. You know, like, is it Jack Ben Edwards, the guy that's like he's got like 500,000 followers, and they call him like the social media librarian. He really breaks down some quite intricate books and really detailed books and talks about literature. And sometimes I think, like, I'd love to do that, but I'm not the most intelligent lad. You know, I failed GCSE English. I just work with what I've got, and I've not got the brain to be able to cope with the what I'd call harder reads. So I just read easy books. I enjoy them, and I just run with that.
But we were talking about this recently, weren't we? Because like, before starting this, I come out of an 8-year reading slump, and I studied literature in university, so I loved it growing up, like loved analysing books, loved reading. Went to uni and did it, and it literally ruined reading for me. Like, it just doing 3-year degree was like, there is no fun left in this anymore. Like, I don't want to do this, and I did not pick up a book for 8 years because it was like, I just can't look at a book in the same way. And it was only books like ACOTAR, Fourth Wing, all those, where, because you're reading it for the story and the characters, the enjoyment, and I wasn't reading to pick apart and analyse a book, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I actually do love reading. I just didn't enjoy, like, and I don't know, getting that deep into it. And like you said, I think there's a difference between, like, you know, BookTok and Bookstagram, and then people who are writing book reviews in like the Daily Mail. Like, they're two very different things.
Yeah, of course it is. And I think I tried at one point, I tried annotating a book, and I think I realised that I was never going to be that person, because as I started annotating, I realised that the things I were annotating were more about lines that kind of made me feel a certain way, but nothing to do with how it was written. It was nothing to do with like how a sentence was structured. So I was just like, what's the point of me annotating and trying to break these books down? Because all I'm annotating is just like, oh, I love this bit, this is wicked. Like, so I just, I think I've done it on one book, and I'll never annotate again. Because my feelings, like, I feel different every time. Like, I'm reading Harry Potter again now, and everyone always says, what's your favourite series of all time? I'm like, Harry Potter. You ask me what happens in this book, I can tell you. Like, I remember, like, that Sirius Black comes into it, and there's things I remember, but my memory is so bad. So you'll probably know from my page that I'm autistic and I'm awaiting an ADHD diagnosis. So, like, my memory is, like, I'll remember the most ridiculous things that just aren't necessary. Like, my wife will play, this is going off on a tangent now, another one of my little neurospicy tweets. So my wife will put a CD on, and before the song ends, I'll start singing the next song, and she's like, how are you doing that? And I'm just like, I don't know, my mind just remembers what song's coming next. Whereas if you ask me what happened in a book that I read 2 weeks ago, I'm like, I don't know, I ain't got a clue. So I just reread them. And every time I reread them, like, I'll probably be in a different place and I'll feel completely different. The first time I read ACOTAR, I really, really enjoyed it. The second time I read ACOTAR, I really, really enjoyed it. But I also realised that it probably is, like, overhyped. And I said that on a recent video. Everyone was like, is ACOTAR good? I'm like, yeah, it's incredible. You should read it. But it definitely gets too much hype. Like, I've read a lot better romantasy than ACOTAR, but there's just something in that book that just makes you want more.
Yes. Yeah, no, 100%. We do it all the time, because, like, same being, you know, ADHD and Sam not, you get the two of us, like, how we'll read at the same time, we'll read at the same speed, we'll come to record on a Monday, and, like, literally the ending of Iron Flame, right, like the biggest plot twist ever, and I was like, oh, I don't remember Zayden being that, and Sam was like, we literally read it a day ago, and I was like,
I was like, did you finish the book? She was like, yeah, I definitely finished it. I was like, what is happening?
Oh my god, it's a solid 4 stars, really enjoyed it. She's like, how did you rate it? But I'm the same as you. When I reread, then I get a completely different experience every time I reread, and I actually really love it, because it's like my brain resets itself every time, you know.
I love it. I know it's like perfect. People say to me, does it not frustrate you? And I'm like, no, because every time I read a book, I'm reading it for the first time again.
Literally,
it's insane. I think it's like wicked not being able to remember stuff. Sometimes people are probably like, does he actually read books? Like, or does he just come on and pretend he's read books? And I'm like, yeah, whatever, think what you want. But, like, yeah, just you understand, because your brain works that way. And my wife laughs at me all the time. She'll tell me something, and then 10 minutes later she's like, have you done that thing? And I'm like, you've not even told me to do that. She's like, babe, I've literally just told you. And I'm like, well, you haven't. It's like, you looked at me and you responded. It's like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I think that's what it's about, isn't it? It's like, you're just there for how it makes you feel emotionally. At the end of the day, like, I don't, like you said, I don't care how well the prose are written. I don't care about sentence structures. I don't care about spelling mistakes. I don't care if a sentence start with but and. Like, I just want to have that emotional, like, roller coaster, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we're right at the end of our questions. So the final one we had was that you're very open and honest, like you've mentioned, about your mental health challenges on your page. And it's something that Sam and I both really resonate with as people who found reading like that escapism for dealing with, you know, difficult mental health periods. What is one thing you could tell somebody who's maybe going through something similar right now, who's listening? Like if there's just one, like, I wouldn't say advice, but one, I guess, like motto, don't know if that's the word for it, but you could sort of stick to every time, what would that be?
I don't know, it's hard because I get a lot of messages like on a daily basis from people asking me about mental health and saying, how do you cope? I'm a big believer, and I say it all the time, like, it's okay to not be okay. I think sometimes people, because they're not talking about it and they're not communicating with people, they overthink the thoughts they're having, and they maybe think they're worse than they are. And I'm not trying to play down people's mental health, but I think because I left mine so long, that I'd left mine for years and years and years and never communicated about it. I think if I'd have spoke up about it sooner and just spoke to someone, I'd have realised that actually I'm not alone. A lot of people feel this way. So I think because people keep it inside for so long and they keep it secret, it just builds up and builds up and builds up, and then they explode. And I don't think I'd have ever got to the place where I got to, where I wanted to take my own life, if I'd had someone just say to me, actually, I'm struggling, and it's all right. And I think that's what I try and do every day on my page, is I try and just let people know, you know what, you're going to have bad days. That's life, you know. I think I faked it for so long, that I masked an appearance for so long. People always saw me as a class clown, the joker. And I think I faked it that much that I almost believed that I was never sad, because I was always high and like just hyperactive and stuff. And it was fake. So yeah, I'd say just speaking about it is the most important thing I think anybody can do. It's just normalizing mental health. I don't think if someone's got poor mental health, it necessarily means you've got depression. I was diagnosed with depression. I'm not sure if it was. I think my issue really was just the fact that I just hid it for so long. Issues, trauma from sexual abuse growing up, just isolation from not being able to form friendships, and I think all these things I'd never dealt with, so it just exploded.
Yeah, I think we both always say all the time that, because people will say, oh, you know, you come off so confident, like you do social media, you have a podcast, like we're both generally the loudest. But then when we tell people we're literally two of the worst people you could ever think when it comes to anxiety, people are like, what? Because, you know, but like you said, it's like that fake it till you make it reaction, isn't it? That you have this like facade and shield that just goes up, and you've been living it for so long that you almost don't know any different. And then, you know, we sometimes will text each other about things and we'll say to each other, this is going to sound really weird, but do you ever? And then you'll say like, oh, because this is just a me thing. No one else thinks like this. And I'm like, no. Hello. Like, but you know, we see each other all the time, but sometimes it takes those moments of like actually opening up and speaking to somebody. You realize, you know, Sam's like my best friend, but it'll be on a random Tuesday after 7 years of friendship. We realize, oh, we both do this thing, you know, but it's not so inherent to open up and speak about, is it, like you said? And unfortunately, you know, like social media and, you know, media in general sometimes has a negative effect on that. But I think, you know, people like you coming out and being so brave about what you speak about, and it being such a forefront of the content that you create, you know, it makes other people realize actually this is okay, and there's somebody that I, you know, look up to who has gone through a similar situation. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily escalate as bad then for somebody because they speak about it sooner.
Yeah, I'd say on a daily basis, I'll get at least 20 messages from individual people saying to me, like I had one yesterday, someone told me they'd quit a job that they'd been unhappy in for years because of one of my videos. And I was like, that's wicked. Like, as far as I'm concerned, money and bills and stuff like that don't mean shit if your mental health's not in a good place. Like, you need to look after mental health first. And I think the best thing that's come out of this for me, on a selfish level, is me being open and honest about my mental health and my own personal needs. It's just made me so much better. Like my wife, like my social battery is quite short. Like I can maybe deal with people for like an hour to 2 hours, and then I'm all peopled out. I'm like, have me time. And since opening up and going through therapy, like my wife knows that now. So if I'm around my wife and kids, after an hour or two, I'll just go upstairs and read for half an hour. I went for a meet up with followers from Page at Meadowall, and I'd done about an hour and a half, 2 hours with them all. And then we went and sat for food, and I didn't speak to any of them, but they were all brilliant. And afterwards, they messaged me and were like, "We could see you were done." And I think because I'm so open on my page, like they all knew, right, he's not being an arsehole. Like, he's just been that energetic at the start of the meetup that he's just burnt out now. So for me, that's the best thing I think I've ever done, is just got rid of that facade, stop trying to pretend I'm something I'm not, and just accept what my own mind and body needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I came across one of your videos the other day where you were talking about if you're on any medications, like don't change your doses without speaking to your doctor, and make sure you're keeping up with everything. And I was just like, what an important message, and like what a great platform to put it out on, because it had so many comments. And I was like, if even one person saw that and thought, oh, actually, I'm not going to change my dose just yet, I'm going to actually make an appointment and speak to a doctor, like what a great platform to do it on. Like, you know,
it makes it worth it for me, because on days like that, you know, as my oldest daughter, she's 14 and she follows my page. So like when I've put videos on in the past where I'm crying and stuff, it's hard because I don't want my oldest daughter to see her dad crying. Obviously, she'll message me and she'll worry. She'll be like, "Dad, are you okay?" But then I always say to her, "Look, babe, I know it's not easy for you to see, but it's more important than your emotions." And, you know, my daughter is everything to me, but she knows Dad's going to be all right. I'm not going to do anything silly. And like the amount of messages I get after doing them videos from people that obviously don't want to put on a public forum in comments, "This is how I'm feeling, this is what I've done." It just, and I know that it's worth it. And I think I did a video a while back in a green jumper when I was sat. I went to see one of my friends committed suicide at school. I went to see, he's got like a what do they call it? Is it a mural where they've got painted? So they got a painting of him there, and I went to see it, and I sat down. It upset me because I wanted to take my own life, and I started crying. And I recorded myself while I was sat there, and I think I said something like I know this page is going to make a difference. I'm going to save lives, and that's my main aim. Of course, I love reading books. I love talking about books, and I love trying to make people smile. But like, I know that I've at least saved a life. And if that's, you know, if my Instagram and my BookTok ends tomorrow, if I save one life from my page.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just such an important message.
Yeah, and there's not enough people doing it. And I think the reality is that the percentage of people that actually are in that situation is probably a lot higher versus what you see. And I think it's individuals like yourself who are brave enough to be that open and honest, as difficult as it is, I'm sure, on a daily basis, to continue being so open about something that's so inherently private is like you said, the reason why your comments and your messages are like, you know, 20 messages a day, are because, you know, you're willing to, I guess, you know, put yourself out there like that, and it's not the easiest thing to do.
No, it's not. It's hard, but it's important.
Yes. Couldn't agree more.
And I don't, you know, I get a lot of messages from men as well saying, you know, I'm so proud of you as a man. Like, for me, the male-female conversation doesn't come into it. You know, women suffer with mental health, women commit suicide. I just think, like, I just wish as a community, and I don't just mean Bookstagram, I just mean the world, that I wish people would just get rid of this taboo over talking about mental health. I wish that people didn't look at me and go, "It's so brave," because I don't think it should be something that's seen as brave. I think it should be something that's seen as essential, and I think it is essential. And that's why, you know, I talk. I got a message in the past from my oldest daughter's nana, who said, "I'm not sure you should be putting stuff like that online." And I said, "Well, tough shit, it's going online. Like, as far as I'm concerned, if my daughter can see me, her 34-year-old dad, online talking about his mental health, that's only going to teach her that it's okay to talk about mental health." And I'll keep doing it. And, you know, if I save another life, 10 lives, 100 lives, whatever, you know, it's worth it.
Yeah, no, we couldn't agree more. I think that's the biggest thing, particularly as a parent myself, like I always think, is that sometimes I think not every family's the same, but we get into this situation because you just had so many generations, and maybe it was, like a generational thing at the time of like not talking about these things and not being open and making it a taboo subject, and all it's doing is like perpetuating that, that like ethos into the next generation. And if you've been brought up by family, not saying that's a bad thing, but if you've been brought up by a family that doesn't talk about it, inherently that's going to become your sort of attitude. And like you said, as a parent, you almost, you don't want to necessarily always be the person your child looks up to, but you kind of want to be that, you sort of almost want to, if I expect you to do it, I can at least, you know what I mean, like try, if that makes sense.
Another thing I'm big on, I forgot to say earlier as well, because I get loads of messages from people saying to me like, oh, just like you, I use reading as an escape. I'm a big advocate on not using reading as an escape. I always say to people, for a long time, I probably did use reading as an escape. I don't think it should be used as an escape, because I don't think then you're dealing with the problem that you actually have. I don't think it was until I actually maybe like put my books down and got up and dealt with it by going to therapy, speaking to people and actually communicating. I'm all for saying like reading's an escape if you just want to shut off from the world for a bit and just go to a different world and live in Prithian for a bit and fly with fairies. Like I'm cool with that. But when it comes to your mental health, I don't think you should ever block out the problems that you're having by reading. I think really you need to deal with that. So if anyone does watch this and you're having mental health problems, you're feeling depressed, whatever, you just need to speak to a doctor, because one of the hardest things I ever did was speak to a doctor, but one of the best things as well. And I'm not going to say it was the therapy that helped me, because I think some of the therapy I had was absolute garbage. But just going to a doctor and going to therapy just opened up a lot of avenues for family knowing that I'm in therapy, and it just opened up a lot of conversations. So yeah, although reading is fantastic to escape bills and being a parent and stuff like that, I think we need to deal with whatever the underlying problem is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yes. We just want to say, like, honestly, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming on here and talking about this. It's such an important topic. And yeah, we are like so grateful that you've taken the time to talk to us today. We really, really appreciate it.
And thanks for making me cry, you set of twats.
Sorry.
We're so sorry.
Sorry.
If you'd have read the questions beforehand.
I know, I probably shouldn't have. I'd have had my answer then. But no, you know what? I'm not. Boys get sad too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've put myself online in front of a lot of people crying. I don't mind crying. It's just I'm an ugly crier, so it's just not ideal.
So that was episode 30 of A Pod of Smut and Wingspan with the wonderful Bookish Dad Reads, also known as Tyrone. So firstly, a huge thank you to him for sitting down with us this week. And as we said, although, some more light-hearted topics, also having some really important conversations about mental health. We have put links and resources in the description of this week's episode. If you are struggling with some of those topics and you feel like you need somebody to reach out to, we've put, appropriate resources down below for you to contact if needed.
So that was episode 30.
And next week we are back to business with reviewing a book.
Yeah, we're doing When the Stars Are Light.
We are. So yes, When the Stars Are Light by Camilla Andrew is next week. The week after will be We Will Devour the Night by Camilla Andrew, which is book 2 in that series.
Yes.
And then the week after we're talking to Camilla Andrew herself.
Yeah, so a little 3-part Camilla Andrew coming up.
Yeah, nice to feature an indie author on the main channel as well.
Yes.
After that,
who knows?
Who bloody knows?
We'll have a business meeting and we'll let you know.
Flying by the seam of our pants? Is that, the seat of our pants?
Yeah.
What's the saying? Seam or seat?
Seat.
Seat. Flying by the seat of our pants. As per.
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know.
Okay, it sounds weird when I say it.
Yeah.
When other people say it, it sounds really funny. Okay, well, there we are.
Thanks so much for listening.
Follow us on TikTok and Instagram at A Pod of Smut and Wingspan.
See you next week.
Bye.